May is Mental Health Awareness Month. 70% of professionals don't even realize they're burnt out until their body forces them to stop. Don't be one of those people. Be in the 30% that are doing something. And join us right after this. Welcome, everybody. This is a Life Enthusiast Health Shots podcast, restoring vitality to you and the planet. And this month is Mental Health Month, and we're going to be talking about that right now. I'm Scott Patton, your host. Joining us is Martin Patella. And Martin, for some reason, we have feedback on your side.
Yeah. Burnout. It's so easy to come by. You try too hard. You don't take a holiday. You think you can put it off. You just do another week and another month. And then you just start hating everything you do. You just can't make yourself get out of bed.
So, Martin, what are some of the signs? Okay, aside from not getting out of bed, what are some of the other warning signs that people may be experiencing burnout?
Yeah, I mean, the early signs would be not really loving what you do, right? Like when you're living in a hateful situation, whether you hate your job, your relationship, your circumstances, whatever, when you're living in that drag, you're going to burn out. I just don't know how to prevent that, right? Flow is the opposite of burnout. And in flow, you're not even noticing that you're doing it. You're playing instead of drudging. I guess the number one sign would be that you hate doing what you do.
For me, it was clenching my jaw. And of course, you go to the dentist and they just put something, a thing in to clench on, rather than saying, you know what, you need to relax. You need to get off of, you need to do something else. You need to do something to deal with your stress. You're not dealing with it. You're ruining your teeth. And I noticed and I didn't know, right? I noticed as soon as I left my job, I'm not clenching. Now, of course, I know, like if I am clenching my jaw, like I'm stressed and I'm doing something I don't like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. When you live in fear, when you live in resentment, when you live in, well, those are the main sentiments. I would say those would be the sure markers that you're going to be on the wrong path. And then, of course, the grinding of the teeth is you can't bloody relax.
Right.
Yeah.
So outward expressions of stress would be, like we just said, grinding of teeth. It could be like you're holding your tension in your shoulders or your stomach.
Yeah.
Indigestion, would that be something?
Yeah. I guess we all hold stress in different body parts, right? Some people will get a headache. Some people will get a backache. Some people will grow a big belly. I don't know. It's just various ways.
Right.
Stress. Well, okay. Worry, anxiety. The other one would be the opposite of that. That would be depression.
Right.
Yeah. Either of the extremes. Crazy thing. I heard that 75% of all prescriptions filled are for drugs that change how you feel, change your emotional state. Oof. Anyway, you made some awesome notes about what really goes on in the world, right? What is the thing? Stress is the thing that gets you to a burnout, right? Like if you don't deal with stress is something that you put on yourself, either through mental, emotional, or physical inputs. That's what comes at you. But how you deal with it is what will determine whether you stay with it or burn out.
Right.
I remember Tony Robbins. He kept pushing and pushing and pushing, mind over matter. And then eventually he just totally crashed, physiologically crashed. I remember that he was actually buying my magnesium crystals to take magnesium baths because he was just so depleted, right?
Right. And I guess that's the good news, is there are ways to deal with it, both in mentally and emotionally, and also physically. Kevin has a great comment that he just put in here that I want to share, which was, I threw up yesterday, too much stress in doing my work. It is bad enough to have health problems, but having to work too is hard. And this is the work I love, just too much of it. And
yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. There's a fine symptom, right? Like when you push the autonomic nervous system past the balance, right? Like one side, parasympathetic, rest, repair, digest. The other one, sympathetic, fight, flight. What happens is if you push it far enough into the fight, flight, your digestion actually shuts down. And the only way to deal with what's in your stomach is to eject it.
Right.
I remember my wife, when she was in labor with our child, she threw up. When the going got really tough, when it was like crunch time, she threw up. I remember I threw up. I was in a situation in the Black Sea. I was in Bulgaria, and there was a storm, and the waves were real big, and we tried to save somebody from drowning. And we swam out too far, and all of a sudden I was over my head, right? Like the wave picked me up, lifted me, and then put me down on the bottom in about 20 feet of water. I was scraping my back I felt it on the sand in what was about 20 feet of water. And I thought, oh shoot, I'm over my head. Anyway, so I started swimming with all I knew how back to the shore. Took me something like 20 minutes to swim the 50 yards. It was just a crazy surf. Anyway, there I was kneeling on the sand just out of the reach of the surf, throwing up from exhaustion, right?
Right.
That's the sure sign. Physical limit. Now you can get there through emotional limit, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So part of what happens with this stress is also the way that we live our lives, like the decisions that we make every day. And you may make a decision today that you think is a good decision, but it causes stress when new information comes out or new things happen. And all of a sudden you look back at that decision last week, yesterday, last week, a month ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, and you go, oh, that was a really bad decision. And I had the opposite. I wanted to share this with everybody, was because I made a good decision, and I recognize now that if I made the opposite decision, I would have been just consumed in guilt. And I worked at a grocery store, and I had a fellow working under me who was a very fierce A personality, like just tense and intense and intense, intense, all this stuff. And everything was like a crisis. And I'm kind of laid back. And then we didn't get along. And then he went to another store, and I ended up at that store. But this time he was working part-time because he had MS. But he had the ear of the manager. And so he kind of ruled the roost, and he would do his big thing, and everything was a crisis, and go run to the manager. The manager would tell everybody, like, just let him go. And he undercut everybody's authority, including mine. And then the manager changed. And when this fella had his big upset, ran to the new manager looked at him like, who are you? So he had no power base, and he glommed onto me as his power base. And everyone was expecting me to treat this guy like crap because he had treated me like crap and he treated everybody else like crap. And I didn't. And I could tell the energy in the stories. Everyone's like, why are you being pleasant to this guy? 5 years later, I'm no longer in that city. I'm in another city, and I call a friend of mine who works for the company, and I blah, blah, blah. And at the end, I said, oh, by the way, whatever happened with Dave? Oh, Dave. Yeah, he went to the national park with a shotgun and blew his brains out 2 years ago. And I'm thinking, oh, my goodness. If I'd have treated him badly, and then he goes and commits suicide, I know it won't be because of me, but man, oh, man, would I feel bad. And I think sometimes we make these decisions and choices and we have these behaviors, and they're not necessarily congruent with who we really are. And it was just easier to be mean to that person or ignore them or whatever. And over time, that adds to that burnout, because these are all like little, it's like you've got the bag and you're carrying a bag and it's full of little stones of regret. And if you've got a little bag, it's okay. But when it's huge, you have a problem, right?
Yeah, yeah. Hoy.
Glad
Yeah,
you made it, Martin. Great story.
yeah. That could have been the end of it. It really could have.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, we talked a bit about warning signs. So if you're stressed out, if you're not happy, if you're tired, you don't want to get out of bed, what are some things that you could do to break up this burnout cycle?
Well, okay, physiologically, we can activate the the rest, repair, digest side of the autonomic nervous system. The surest thing is magnesium, because magnesium is the mineral that activates the parasympathetic. So taking it in a bath or using it topically is super quick and super easy. The other thing is you can start supplementing with something that will soothe the overstimulated nervous system. Cannabidiols are such a thing. We're not supposed to talk about hemp much because it's for some reason still a hot button because it's still federally regulated. But there's another plant that contains the same cannabidiols. They don't call them cannabidiol, they call them xanthohumols, but it's the same damn thing. And the plant is called hops.
Okay.
And it's the stuff that you put in beer to make it bitter. It's a very bitter alkaloid. And we actually have it available in a bottle, bitter bottle. Like I use this all the time. I have a bottle of it going all the time. If I overstimulate and if I feel like I've just had a little too much, here goes. Oh, it's bitter as hell.
And Martin's gonna be just like so relaxed for the rest of the show.
Well, what's really interesting about this triggers the release of a hormone called oxytocin. And oxytocin is the hormone that's released when the child is suckling on the breast of the mother.
Oh.
It's a hormone associated with bonding. So when you have mother and child bonding, it's that letdown of the milk that's triggered by oxytocin. And anyway, if you take it two people, like man and woman or whatever, couple, be careful who you take it with, because you're going to be bonding to that person when your oxytocin level goes up. So I'm bonding with Scott right now.
I don't have my bottle with me.
I will never ever treat Scott unkindly, because I have now essentially developed the same bond as my mother would have with me, or as a mother will have with their child. However,
always, I am never going to go swimming with you after hearing that swimming story.
All right. Well,
Kevin says he takes Miridium, and it's a good thing. Awesome.
Yeah, it is a good thing. Yeah.
We also have a product I wanted to talk about called Adrenal Ease.
Right. Yeah. Okay, Scott, that's for people who have gone over the edge. That once you have exhausted the reserves, once you really are dragging, unable to get this, you whip the horse and the horse will not run.
Right.
Adrenal Ease is the food that feeds your adrenals so you can get it going again. Yeah.
Awesome. And I also wanted to quickly share the magnesium. Magnesium is such an amazing mineral, eh?
Yeah, totally.
It's so important to me and so hard to get in, right?
Yeah.
Absorb it through the skin, everybody.
Yeah. I have a bottle of topically everything going all the time.
And I do too, by the way.
Yeah, the reason I like the topically everything is because it also has in it not just the straight magnesium, but it has in it also kelp and alfalfa, which are minerals from the ocean and minerals from the meadow, from the prairie, from the soil, from the land. Trying to come up with better words of saying it. Yeah.
And here's the link for we've put the link for everything in the comments, so you can see them. And that's the topical everything.
Yeah.
I like the magnesium gel, to be honest.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
I use it also. Actually, I use the magnesium oil, and I use it after a bath. I use it as a deodorant because magnesium at full concentration as a saturated solution will wipe out bacteria because it's salty, right? It's a high concentration mineral.
Right.
Therefore, I take a spoonful of the magnesium oil, put it on my hand, and I just rub it into my armpits, and I rub it on my belly and whatever. It's a deodorant for me, and of course, it keeps me calmer too.
Right. Yeah, that's a good thing. Martin, it just occurred to me something else that people should be thinking about when it comes to their mental health and their stress and that sort of thing was this is the other thing that happened to me is look at the people that are doing what you are doing who are 10 years older than you, because everything is a system. And if you're in a certain system and the people are in the same system and they're 10 years older, that's a good indication of what they're going to be like. So when I was managing grocery stores, what really was a wake-up call for me was one of our buddies was gone. And he came back 3 months later, and I called him up and I says, "Are you all right? Like, what happened?" I was on a mental health break. And I thought, oh, and this guy, when you think about it, he was 10 years older than me, 50 pounds heavier than me, 3 inches shorter than me. And I thought, that's my future. Not the future that I want. So you need to really, take a look around you and like, what are your parents like? What are your brothers and sisters like? What are the people working the same job as you like?
Yeah.
And that gives you
the path you're on. What is the road you're on? Because if you're going to stay in the ruts, they're not going to let you get out of the ruts. You will carry on in the ruts all the way to the destination. You already know where it's going to end up.
Yeah, a wake-up call, George. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a cliche about ruts, right? Ruts are a grave with the ends knocked out.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Just lay down somewhere and you'll be done.
Well, it's that, right? If you're not thinking, if you're not reevaluating, if you're not considering your life, then you're going to end up exactly where you're going.
Yeah. Another thing, we talk about this in terms of the 4 pillars of things that you shouldn't be doing, like or you should be relieving toxicity and that sort of thing. And it occurs to me that stress in and of itself is neutral, right? Like it can be very motivating and all the rest of it. But we put stress on our bodies when we go to the gym and we work out, like we lift up weights or we do sit-ups or we go for a jog or run. And one of the things that I think we don't do enough of, and you talk about it a lot, is move our bodies. Like we're in this state of stagnation where everything is just sort of sitting here and we're not moving stuff through our systems using like the lymphatic system. So let's talk a little bit about that before we end the show.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. What worked for me was when I was in an office job, is at the end of the day, before dinner, I would actually go to the gym in the evening and just worked out. I had a routine going where I would do a circuit. I think it took 40 minutes to do, and it involved weights and running. So you would run for 30 seconds and then do weights for 30 seconds or something like that. Maybe a minute. Anyway, the point was that working off the accumulated stress, especially cortisol, adrenaline, all of those hormones that would normally stay in, was just very cathartic, because I would arrive home after the gym and I would feel liberated. The stresses of the day were out of me, and I could have just as easily be punching a bag, kicking a bag, or just doing stuff that would involve significant work and aggression, right? Get the aggression expressed because it's in you. It just needs to flow. Yeah. Did you do something like that?
Yeah, I used to run a lot. I used to work out in the gym a lot, and every night walk around my neighborhood. It was a really good way to get rid of. Well, I didn't do it thinking, I'm going to get rid of stress. I did it thinking I feel really good afterwards and I have a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Fresh air.
Now in my older days, I'm reduced to walking rather than punching bags. I should probably renew my commitment to punching bags.
I really think that taking a martial art is a really good thing. And Kevin, you've got a great comment. Like you said many times, Martin, stagnation is part of the problem when health is bad.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. Martin, any last tips in terms of how we can improve our mental state?
Mental state. I'll always go back to Tony Robbins. He's such a master of managing that. And his words were, go to TV, transformational vocabulary, where he would say, don't call it a disaster, call it an inconvenience. Just change the representation of what's coming to you. Like if you lose, I don't know what, a pile of money, or if you total your car, you can just say, oh my God, this is the end of the world. I don't know, this is the end of me. Or you can say, oh, that was bloody awful. Or that was inconvenient. Or something to diminish the impact of the thing in our lives.
That's a really good point, because how we interpret everything is what the reality is, right? Because we all know two people that have the same sort of thing happen, and one is just a basket case and the other as well. Actually, that happened to me last week. I was talking to a friend of mine last week. I am in Mexico, and I ate something Mexican, and I had Montezuma's Revenge, a mild version of it. And I told my friend, like I've been running to the bathroom like every half hour. And he said something along the lines of like, that's too bad or whatever. And I said, it's part of the deal. You're going to travel. This is going to happen sooner or later. And he just laughed and laughed and laughed. Right? He says, yeah, that's the attitude.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bloody inconvenient when you have to drop everything you're doing and run right now.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And laughter. Like one of the things
Yeah.
I really, now we're starting to laugh, right?
Yeah. What's the antidote to misery? Yeah, it's laughter.
I love YouTube because YouTube will show me 3 or 4 comedians that I like, and it'll be like a short, like it's like 30 seconds, or it'll be like 3 to 5 minutes. So it's a teeny break, right?
Yeah.
And they're funny, and I laugh at them, and then I go, oh, that is, and you can just sort of feel the release that goes on. And Merlene says, hello from Canada. Better late than never. George says, thank you. Another great episode. And George says, hi to Merlene.
Yeah. It's interestingly enough, you're putting something nice about YouTube, which is, it's a beautiful collection of wonderful things. And yet those mofos are censoring the heck out of us.
Yep.
Hitting us with their community standard nonsense. They are just so awful about anything that helps people. Yeah, you have endless amount of entertainment and praise them for it. But if you really want to get any education about something important, they won't let you have it. They will only let you have mindless entertainment, or edutainment as they would call it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really sad. And we have 2 strikes, so we're not actually doing anything on our main channel. We're putting it on our backup channel, which has no strikes because there's nothing there. And and shaking our heads. And it's not like and I can't say it. It's not like blah, 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 blah. And, it's outrageous. It was like, I'm listening to it like 5 times trying to figure out what it was. And it was like one little word. And it was like,
we were discussing supplementation, and we were discussing what's the recommended daily amount might be.
Right.
And we used one word to describe how much to take.
And they were like, into I almost said Facebook jail, into YouTube jail with you guys.
Yeah, I use the word that is associated with using pharmaceuticals rather than with using nutritionals. Right? I should have called it a serving, but I called it something other than that. And kaboom.
Kaboom. So I don't know. And I'm hoping that the pendulum is going to be, I think the pendulum is kind of swinging to people being able to be more open and free in what they have to say. However, many of these media companies are set in their ways, and the people are very set in their ways. So who knows?
So I want to figure out if I can get the comedians on a different provider.
Yes, I've looked for them on a different provider. So with that, we really appreciate you all being here with us. Remember, this is your mental health is something you can do something about. There may be physical things to look at, and exercise is one we recommend. There's definitely what you put into your body, and there's also what you can remove from your body. Everything is impacted, right? Like if you hurt your finger, you feel it in your head, right? Like, ow. So everything's connected.
And nothing much paper cut can be a really serious annoyance.
I hate paper cuts. Well, this has been Martin and Scott, restoring vitality to you and the planet on the Health and the Life Enthusiast Health Shots podcast. Oh, hang on, 2 last. Have a great weekend, Kevin. And George says, you too. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great rest of the week. We love you, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.